I hope that I am wrong. I just watched a video yesterday, not just, but I watched it yesterday, where Hank Green was talking about his worry about society's pace of change. Because as, time passes, we start changing the way that we do things. And a really big change that's happened recently is the explosion of generative AI, which I have talked about many, many times, very often in a negative light. But it wasn't really till today, whenever I was looking into the historical context of the change in society in relation to these new technologies that we keep coming up with, and parroting that with what I'm seeing with generative AI now, and really having to sit down and think about my opinions on the whole thing. A quote that he said during the video that really stuck out to me: "Communications technology revolutions are always very disruptive and do tend to lead to periods of time that are worse than the periods of time directly before them." Which kind of seems like where we're going, basically as every new communicative technology came out, there was a period where it was unregulated and overused, and people were using it for all these new bad things that they could use it for because it was unregulated, which is where we see generative AI at right now. It's one of not my biggest critique about it, if I'm going to be honest. Some of my critiques stem from what I've now seen or now read to be historical critiques of new technological changes over time. Just every time it happens, there's this big public outrage, similar to the way I see it. Although this does not discount the environmental damage that generative AI does, which is vastly different from all of the other new technological changes that we've had for communication. But anyways, to back up the point that I was making, I started looking into writing, just writing in general, the very first instances of it, and then books, and then radio, and then television, and then AI. And this is some of the things that I read about these changes. This is a quote from Socrates from the literal invention of writing and some of the things that he had to say about it. "For this invention will produce forgetfulness in the minds of those who learn to use it, because they will not practice their memory. Their trust in writing, produced by external characters which are not part of themselves, will discourage the use of their own memory within them. You have invented an elixir not of memory, but of reminding. And you offer your pupils the appearance of wisdom, not true wisdom. For they will read many things without instruction, and will therefore seem to know many things, when they are not for most part ignorant and hard to get along with, since they are not wise, but only appear wise." Which, if we sit and think about it for a second, a big gripe that I have brought up many times whenever it comes to using generative AI, especially in that video a while back when I talked about ChatGPT and the way people use it in Twitter, is that they're just using the AI to tell the information, right? They're not, in a kind of similar relation to how Socrates is talking about writing here in regards to memory. It's really similar to instead of learning the information, they're just they're using a tool to repeat the information. It is out there where they can just look it up and say it, similar to this where it is out there, they can just memorize it but choose not to. And of course, one thing that Hank Green brings up is that as time passes, people have these gripes, and then the next big thing comes out, or time passes and people just get used to it, just like with the invention of writing. You just get used to it. I can guarantee you not a single person watching this video is going, "Why on earth are we writing things? This will do such horrible things to our memory. It is such a bad thing that we write things down." I'm more than willing to bet no one here says that. Moving on to the invention of books and the printing press. This is from, and I frankly just didn't feel like looking up how to pronounce their name, the great Trithemius, Abbot of Sponheim. That's going to be the best I do. "A work written on parchment can be preserved for 1,000 years, while it is probable that no volume printed on paper will last for more than 2 centuries. Many important works have not been printed, and the copies of these must be prepared by scribes. The scribes who ceases his work because of the invention of the printing press can be no true lover of books, in that, regarding only the present, he gives no due thought to the intellectual cultivation of his successors. The printer has no care for the beauty and the artistic form of books, while with the scribe this is a labor of love." Reading this quote, it gave me two things. One, there's somewhat of an outlook on the scribes will no longer be making these books. There will be more coming out of the printing press than there will be coming from the scribes. And it's not like explicitly written, but it can be implied that the scribes will no longer be doing the books, not nearly as much as they were before, which is, similar to the loss of job that a lot of people have been complaining about whenever it comes to generative AI, which let's be honest, it will happen. It is happening. But if I'm going to be honest, we don't have a bunch of jobless scribes sitting around right now. That's not even something that we're concerned with in the slightest. I have thought, like, yes, this is going to remove lots of jobs, and that is going to be bad. I know this is, and I know it will be bad. And I could get really more into like why I personally think that the loss of jobs from AI will be irrecoverable. But whenever I sit and look at the context of whenever the printing press came out and there were a lot of scribes who lost their jobs, where are those scribes without jobs now? It's not a profession that we have anymore, and it's not something that we really worry about. And then the other part that really stuck out to me, the printer has no care for the beauty and the artistic form of books, while with the scribe this is a labor of love. Another thing that kind of parrots the AI generation of art, another thing that I am very strongly against AI art, but just with the invention of the printing press that was, crudely copying the artistic creations of the scribes of the time, it is just like we have now, where the AI is crudely interpreting the artistic beauty of the actual art. And once again, we aren't complaining about the scribes who are not making these artistic books. They, in some circumstances, like, they're still doing it. And it is a novel and beautiful thing, and it's great, and, they sell for a premium, and, in niche cases, it still happens. Those who really want to do it are still doing it, and those who no longer have to and don't want to don't have to do it. Of course, the value of these, handwritten books are significantly less than they would have been in the past. But that's just because in the past they were forced to do that. It seems like, looking back at it now, the value of those books back then were artificially inflated by the fact that you were forced to engage with it. Moving on, the radio. And now we know what we have got in radio. Just another disintegrating toy, just another medium like the newspapers, the magazines, the billboards, and the mailbox for advertisers to use in pestering us, a blatant signboard erected in the living room to bring us news of miraculous oil burners, fuel-saving motor cars, cigar lighters that always light, formerly, despite the movies, the automobile, the correspondence course, and the appalling necessity most of us feel for working at 2 or 3 jobs in order to be considered successful. We still had some leisure time, but radio, God's great gift to man, eliminated that last dangerous chance for Satan to find mischief for idle hands. There is now very little danger that Americans will resort to the vice of thinking. It would not be so bad if the listeners were taking in something even slightly informing, but I have searched the ether, airwaves, hopelessly trying to find something with some sense in it being broadcast somewhere. I have heard only the rattle and bang of incredibly frightful jazz music played so similarly that it is impossible to tell one piece from another. During the political campaign, I heard Mr. Hoover calling himself the Messiah and Governor Smith calling himself the Redeemer as they read speeches written for them by ghostwriters. For my patience in listening to news flashes, I have gleaned information concerning the thug who slew a cop and the man who scattered his votes in every precinct, the organist who eloped with his sister-in-law, and the man who bit a dog. And yet we believed that radio was about to set up a new culture in America. Dr. S. Parks Cadman, Presidential Timber, Amy Semple McPherson, and the Sunshine Boys, all of them crying aloud that this is the culture which the radio is bringing to America. That sort of thing is the radio's fodder, and it will continue to be radio fodder until the loudspeaker follows the iron deer into the blessed oblivion. New culture indeed, new nothing. Again, another very similar thing to the way that AI has been, doing things now. I even, a while back, my friends had a conversation about a time back whenever photo-generative AI first came up. For some reason, one of my friends decided that he wanted to generate a photo of a drummer from a band that he liked playing the drums. And we all kind of sat there and looked at him like, brother, that is so stupid. You can just Google a picture of him playing drums and have it. Or, with my previous rantings of the AI videos on TikTok, it would not be so bad if the listeners were taking in something even slightly informing, but I have searched the ether, hopelessly trying to find something with some sense in it being broadcast somewhere. That's like the same thing that I've been saying about these generative AI videos. It's just slop. But just like radio, people enjoy it without problem now. It's just normal. And that's probably where the AI video is going to go. Next, TV. Lots of stuff was said about TV. TV has kept people from going places and doing things, from reading, from thinking for themselves. TV has interfered with schooling, kept children from learning to read and write, weakened their eyesight, and softened their muscles. TV arouses morbid emotions in children, glorifies violence, causes juvenile crime, and then it starts domestic quarrels, tends to loosen morals and make people lazy and sodden. I don't think I need to like say more about this. You know, it just keeps going. Let's see. Again, something that I just pulled up on ChatGPT. Using ChatGPT to write essays may be eroding critical thinking skills. Now, I mean, this may come with a caveat because it's, once again, I'm still trying to argue against this, as it on face value is different from all the different revolutions of the time, where it's no longer, you know, you're no longer engaging with what somebody else has said about something, you are using it to create something new. But fundamentally, it is the exact same thing as just having someone else tell you this information and then you write it down. It's, instead of like doing a Google search and finding the information, it instead is conglomerating that Google search into one succinct thing, or, you know, as easy or difficult as you want it to be explained to you, and then it explains it to you. Yes, using ChatGPT to write essays may be eroding critical thinking skills. But just as in the past, when the scribes no longer had to write their books, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe we won't be writing essays anymore. Maybe in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, we'll go back and look and say, hey, remember whenever they used to write essays? Just like, hey, remember whenever scribes used to copy books by hand? And there will be generations of people who never experienced that, never had to deal with that, never heard of anyone doing that, never did it themselves. And they're going to look back at me the same way I look at the great Trithemius, Abbot of Sponheim, where I'm complaining about the artistic integrity of AI. I'm complaining about the critical thinking skills involved in AI. I'm complaining about all this and all that, same as every generation has before me whenever a new communication form has arisen. And so that's where I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong about everything I have said about AI. I hope I am wrong about all the negative things that I have brought up. Hopefully in the future, we don't worry about the environmental impact. Hopefully in the future, we don't worry about how it has affected our ability to think critically and find information ourselves. Hopefully in the future, it sits in the background just the same as writing does, the same as book does, the same as radio does, and the same as TV does. It's just something that's there. And the same way I grew up now, learning the way I did, children of the future, my kids or maybe my kids' kids, will grow up with the same ability to learn and process information as I did, just so much better with the new tools available. Anyways, that's all I have to say. I rant about stuff all the time, and if you made it here, you clearly enjoyed it, so subscribe. You'll get a new video in like a day or 2 or 3 or sometime soon. Anyways, bye everyone. Bye-bye.